Okay, today on the show, we are joined by Seattle Kraken TV host and reporter Piper Shaw. Piper, thanks so much for doing this today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, as Brady said, thanks for coming on. It's a Monday night that we're recording here. Seattle's playing in LA. Just kind of talk us through what a game day looks like for you, and just kind of how you got to where you are with Seattle.
So a game day where I am reporting, we have like two talent basically for all of kind of the crew positions. So sometimes I am on the road, sometimes I'm at the home games, kind of depends. But on a game day that I'm working as a reporter, typically it starts with morning skate. In the morning, we look at what the line rushes are for the day, who's going to be starting in net, any personnel updates, check out the special teams units if there's any kind of big notes there. And then we usually have morning availability with a player or two and head coach Dave Haxtell, just for what to expect, for the matchup that day, kind of a thing. And then typically I go do my homework and I check in with my producer of whatever, extra notes we know that we're going to be talking about tonight or know that we're going to be touching on that day. Of It varies game to game, obviously, especially with Seattle. There's been so much of like, this is the first ever this, or this is the
Yeah.
ever this, like whatever we might be highlighting. Yeah, and then we usually do some kind of storyline or hit like at the top of the broadcast, and then interviews throughout like any other broadcast, but yeah, so I mean it's pretty standard in terms of how you run a broadcast, but it's kind of an
Yeah.
all-day affair as a reporter.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm curious how you even got to Seattle to start because I think I saw last year, maybe 2 years ago, you're covering NCAA hockey. Is that right?
Yeah, so I am a Minnesotan, born and raised in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I went
Yeah.
to St. Cloud for college because they have a great broadcasting program and they have a D1 hockey team that I grew up watching my entire life. And so lots of opportunities to be on air and cover hockey there. And they also have like a really strong news program, which is actually where I kind of started in was local news, especially because the sports programs are so competitive as the sports industry is in general and broadcasting in general. But yeah, so anyways, I moved to Madison, Wisconsin for my first job at a local news station when I graduated. I was there for like 9 months, and then I got an opportunity to start covering Wisconsin Badger hockey for Fox Sports Wisconsin, which is a branch of Fox Sports North, which now has all been transitioned into Bally Sports. But I mean, you guys are Canadian, so I know you guys don't have college hockey, but you kind of
Yeah.
understand. Like in Seattle, it's a little bit different. Like they don't
Yeah.
like they have the WHL here, but they don't really understand like how popular college hockey is and how it's such a way of life, like in the Midwest of the United States, especially in Minnesota. So it's like, yeah, we have entire broadcast teams dedicated to college hockey, like in
Yeah.
the Midwest. So yeah, that's where I was before, covering Wisconsin hockey. Cole Caulfield, Dylan
Yeah.
Holloway,
Yeah.
Mike Alma, Keandre Miller, lots of, and of course, Tony Granato. I mean,
There you go.
Wow. What was the process like getting that job? Because obviously with a new franchise like that and being in a competitive market, I'm sure there would have been a lot of people wanting to be in the shoes that year. And so just how was that process? And especially for you just coming from Minnesota, just how difficult was it? Difficult was it? And since you've been in Seattle, how's that transformation been for you?
so as I'm sure probably anybody who works in some kind of perceived high level broadcasting role will tell you, it's so much about like who you know and being specific about the moves that you want to make and like strategic. But when I found out that NHL or that Seattle would be getting a new NHL team, I told my boss like 3 or 4 years ago. At the time, I was like, I want to go work for that team. And he was like,
Wow.
oh, nice. Okay. And I was like, no, like I'm going to. And he was like,
Yeah.
all right, bet. And then like July, when they announced July, oh God, what would have been like 2020 of July, I think, when they announced that they were going to be named the Kraken and everything. I
Yeah.
like scheduled a meeting with him and I was like, all right, Cammy Granado is a scout there. So I need to go talk to Tony about talking to Cammy and anybody and everybody else that I knew in any wild connection into it. But I'd also already been doing like some kind of casual interviews with some of the people that were in charge of entertainment with the team, who other producers had connected me with, because basically I was telling everybody and like their dog about how I was going to go work in Seattle.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were like, okay. And they would send me one person's email, and then somebody else would send me one person's email. So, you know, I don't know. I had like 1,000 interviews, and just one person would decide that they would like me. And then they would pass me to the next person. And then they decided that they liked me. And then they'd put me to the next person. And then they were like, hey, do you want to move to Seattle because the expansion draft is next week? And I was like,
Oh, wow.
yeah. And I hosted
Yeah.
the expansion draft, and it was like, all right.
You were hosting the expansion draft?
Yeah, not the ESPN broadcast, but like the event for the team.
Right.
Like I
Right.
got to
Wow.
do like Jerry Bruckheimer and stuff, which was like
Okay.
pretty sick.
Yeah, that's cool. And the start of the season in Seattle must just been so exciting too. I'm sure it still is, but just the thought of having an expansion team and everyone was excited because Vegas did it a few years before, but it has been a little tougher sledding for Seattle this year, obviously, than Vegas had. And I think that was very predicted in the hockey world, that it wasn't going to be quite the same as it was with Vegas. But how's the spirits been of the team and the fans just as this season's gone along?
The spirit of the fans are like unwavering, because they like, it's a very different kind of hockey tradition that they are very purposefully establishing as a brand out here for Seattle.
Right.
Because most of them are like learning the game for the first time, compared to places like Toronto and Minnesota, who have like, legacy teams. People are born skating, they come out of the womb,
Yeah.
like so like our practice facility here has 3 sheets of ice, and it's called the Kraken Community Iceplex. And they have I think like a 50-person staff hired by the team just to teach people how to play hockey and how to skate, which is,
Nice.
I mean, I
Wow.
know the Wild doesn't have that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't speak to every other franchise, but so it's been really exciting, because like win or lose, the Kraken franchise, and everybody who works for it, like they're making it all like, this is Seattle's team. This is not like just the NHL's new team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And they're doing it so on purpose and so wisely. And then in terms of like the spirits of the players, I mean, most of them are just in fact, I had a very candid interview with one Mason Appleton, who no longer plays for the Kraken. He was traded back to the
Winnipeg.
Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was actually like a live interview, and I think like 9 guys like scored in this one game, or had points rather in this one game against like the Sabres earlier this season. I was like, what do you attribute like that depth to? He's like, well, with us all being like expansion picks, we're all pretty much the same level of player.
Yeah.
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 Like, he just like said, I'm like, well, you said it, not me.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
And then
I think they're just staying positive for the most part, and the fans are that all the guys will tell you that the fans could, I don't want to say they could care less whether
yeah.
but like the bar is pretty low.
Yeah.
Good if you're a player, like you don't feel like you're gonna get like pitchforks outside your house like you might in Montreal
And Toronto for sure.
Yeah.
Our fans, and we're a part of the fan base, easily the worst fan base in the NHL. I'll say it. We're not the bad ones. We're not the bad part, but there's a lot of bad here near Toronto.
I feel like, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, everything you hear about Toronto is pretty much true. But I'm curious about the fans after the trade deadline, because obviously we're going to get to that Leaf trade that happened, but there were, I think, like 6 or 7 moves Seattle made, and pretty much all of them just brought draft picks back. Do the fans, for the most part, understand that this kind of needs to happen and it's going to benefit them in the next few years?
It depends, because the fans who were hockey fans before, like followed the WHL around here and stuff, or like had a different team or got transplants from Seattle, like they mostly understood. But even if, you were the GM of the Leafs or the Flyers or whatever, and you are like, yeah, we've got 35 picks for the next 3 years, you kind of be like, what? Like,
yeah.
Even us as broadcasters, we were like, who is skating next week?
Yeah.
But then they picked up Victor Rask and Daniel Sprong and Derek Pouliot. So like then they picked up at least 3 more guys.
Yeah, because no AHL team yet either, correct?
Well, they share the checkers.
Okay.
So we do have, I don't know exactly how many guys we have. I think we have like 7
Yeah, like not enough
Yeah.
to fill a team yet,
No,
or
but
even
yeah, but we
close.
got like a goaltender, and like Cole Lind is gonna finish out the season with us. He was the pick from the Canucks that we had, and he kind of
Nice.
been playing up and down. And then like Riley Shahan has been in our lineup since Brandon Tanev went out injured for the
Right.
rest of the season, and
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
There's like a couple like they definitely call up and like have sent back down. So like there's a handful of guys, but like not necessarily like, okay, so we gave up Colin and Gio and Marcus
Yeah.
and Callie, like, and there's just like, okay,
No players coming back.
Yeah.
that was like three, yeah. So it was just a
Yeah.
little confusing at first. But to answer your question, long story short, I think at first some of the fans didn't understand until Ron Francis, the general manager, like got on mic and was like, hey, just so you know, I'm not planning to draft 35 kids in the
Yeah.
next 3 years. Like, this is draft capital. We are going to take these picks over the summer and use them to trade for some players to fill
Yeah.
out, the roster next year and the year after that with players more immediately, and still have a ton of picks. So
Yeah.
now I think people get it, but like the immediate reaction, they were like, what is going on? Like,
How would you describe the atmosphere in Seattle compared to some of the other NHL arenas you've been to? Like Brady and I, we just went to the Scotiabank Center to watch the Leafs play a couple weeks ago, and it's not really the atmosphere that you kind of hope for as a fan. It's just kind of more the business guys there. It feels like just guys going to the game for the sake of going to a hockey game. But just in your time in Seattle and just visiting some other NHL arenas, how would you describe the atmosphere compared to some of the others?
it's insane. It's literally insane. But there's a couple things to that. One of them is, like I mentioned before, the fans are just so excited to be part of something, and the organization has on purpose made everything for people who live in Seattle. Like, our goal horn is a legit retired fairy horn. Like, they took it
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
in the arena.
Yeah.
Like Nirvana, obviously Nirvana's from Seattle. The goal song like is Lithium by Nirvana. It's like everything that they have done
Nice.
has been so on purpose for people who live here, whether they know the game or not. But also, the arena is basically brand new because it was the old Key Arena, which is where the Supersonics played, and it was a whole thing. The arena cost over $1 billion because they had to support the roof the whole time because I guess
Oh,
it's
geez.
historic. So they had to suspend the roof for 2 years through a pandemic while they
Yeah.
built a new arena, and it's like a subterranean arena. So when
Okay.
you sit in there, there's windows like up top. Anyways, it's
Ooh.
pretty cool. But
Yeah,
also,
like
the guy in charge of all of the arena entertainment at Climate Pledge Arena was the guy who launched the Vegas Golden Knights. His name's Johnny Greco.
Oh.
He's a legend.
okay.
He's worked for a bunch of other things. He used to do WWE, like their game presentation. At one point, like earlier in his career, he was with like the Blue Jackets. But so everything that you see Vegas do, like that was him. And so
Wow.
they brought him here. But it's completely different because the whole Seattle brand is like, people here, it's like rainy and flannels and grungy and kind of edgy. Like, it's not show business, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like blue collar.
Yes, exactly. But also techie. So
Yeah.
it's like they kind of got this mix of like heavy guitars and then like EDM music. Like, but
That's
it's pretty
awesome.
sick. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, that is sick. Is there a player or two on Seattle that's kind of been underrated this year? Maybe it hasn't got the attention that they maybe deserve around the league, but just kind of someone that you've noticed in your games from watching Seattle that kind of deserves more credit for how they're playing and maybe even developing as a player, being an expansion pick.
You want to know who one of my favorite people is Colin Blackwell.
Nice.
Oh,
It's so funny because I used to always be like, oh, look at that, Blackwell with speed, because he was one of the few guys that like would just wheel to the other. Like, sometimes he's just like throwing his body into the boards, like in ways just like committing to getting that puck in ways that like you don't see a lot of other guys, even on other teams, not just the Kraken, like doing. And so I used to always tell my colleagues, like, Colin Blackwell plays like a college hockey player, and they would be like, I don't know what that means, because some of them aren't familiar with college hockey. And it's like, because it's just this like grit and this grind, like at all costs.
Yeah.
At all costs. And also he definitely is the kind of player that like, he'll make some pretty like reckless mistakes really quick, but then he's also like so clutch where you're like, so anyways,
Yeah.
I was always such a Colin Blackwell fan.
Yeah. So that was tough.
he been playing? I haven't seen like much. Has been since the trade. Has he been playing for you guys, or just?
He's been on the fourth line every game, and he's not getting much ice. I really hope that he gets put up in the lineup. The Leafs are always juggling things around, but their first line stays put. Kind of, it's like the next three lines underneath that. But yeah, last game the fourth line had a bit of a tough one. I think he only got like 5 minutes of ice, so I really hope that goes up because I am excited about him too. But let's we'll go quickly to that trade. So the Leafs sent some draft picks. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we got Gio and Blackwell. Just getting to talk to these guys off the ice. You already just talked about Blackwell, but what kind of guy was Gio off the ice when you got to talk to him? Obviously the captain of the Kraken while he was there.
Literally the nicest man ever for no reason, especially for somebody who's been in this league and in this, business hockey player
for like 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was with the Flames for 16 seasons.
Yeah.
Might have, because I know he was the captain for 15, and I highly doubt he was the captain the first year.
Yeah.
So like 16 to 17 seasons, I believe he was with the Flames. And then he was the captain there for 15 years before he came here. 1 year here. So, I mean, there's something to be said about the kind of player who gets to just stay with one franchise as their captain for that long. I mean, this is only now the second time that he's moved to a new team, right? Like to go to the Leafs. But Gio was the kind of guy, like I remember we were in Detroit and it was really cold. And usually we let the players, like as media people, the players get on the buses first when we're like going to the arena and stuff. And we kind of just like hang out, drink our coffee, socialize. And Gio was just like standing out there one day and I was trying to get like my suitcase under the bus. And it was fine. He was like, "Do you need help, Piper?" And I was like, "No." No, I don't need help. I don't need help. Give me my suitcase. And I was like, he was like, "How are you doing?" And I was like,
yeah,
oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. How are you? Like, like go to morning skate. Like, I'm like, don't mind me. Like, so nice. He'd come off the ice for an interview in the middle of the game. He's like dripping in sweat, out of breath. And he would just be like, "How are you doing tonight, Piper?" And I'm like, fine. Like, how are you? Like, you just had 2 penalties and came out of the box, scored a shorty. I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
Do you do the interviews like in between the periods when guys just get off the ice? That's part of your job as well?
Yes.
Nice. So I always wonder with those, like it's a lot of times guys you can tell don't really want to be there, but they know they kind of have to be. But then the guys that just like finish a shift and are so out of breath, you got to feel bad for them a little bit. They're answering questions like just breathing heavy the whole time.
Well, that's why I usually will be like, take a minute. Also, usually the PR guys like get them like a towel and a water or like hat. Like they all kind of, and we don't do the way we do ours. We tape them. We don't do them live.
Oh, okay.
So they like run in the like pre
right
show. So it's not like it has to be.
Yeah.
They can take a minute if they needed to. But sometimes they would rather just like do it, get in the locker room. Sometimes the guys would rather like go to the locker room. Sometimes like Adam Larson a couple times is like just like taking off his gear and he's like in a t-shirt and you're like, all right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get dressed again after this. Whatever.
Who's the is there like a funniest guy on the team? Like is there a team clown that you can kind of see?
I have asked this question to multiple players of who they think the clown is, and Joey Decord is probably the most popular answer of like who's on the team. He's like third string goalie. He's actually really been really good down in the AHL for the Checkers. And the Kraken use him for like a lot of media stuff. But when Nathan Bastian was on the team, everybody said Nathan Bastian, and then the Devils picked him like back up from waivers.
Yeah.
Somebody who's probably was the best interview on the team was Colin Blackwell. Like producers would be like, only 2 questions because Colin will talk.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And he's so smart. I mean, he's a Harvard kid, like, which, you don't necessarily have to have the academics to get into Harvard to go play there, quite the same. But he is a smart person and a great speaker, which is another reason that I liked him. So hopefully he does something wild and you guys can get him on TV and catch a Colin Blackwell interview.
I hope so.
That's our guy now, but I'm curious what the reaction was around Seattle when Gio was traded. Obviously being named the first ever captain of Seattle, and everything that you hear about Gio is always positive. So I'm just curious what the reaction was around Seattle trading their first ever captain. Obviously they got some good return for him, but it's got to be a little sad for some fans to have to trade their captain after not even completing a full season yet.
This is very true. But one thing I will say is that Ron Francis didn't explicitly say, hey, Gio's going to be gone, but the fan base was pretty aware for months, like probably since January, that he was one of the better assets that the team would have. Also, I believe he is a UFA. So that was like, and so is Colin. And so like, there were a couple of guys that just because of that, you're like, well, that might be depending on how they finish out the season or what might be interested. Like, so there was that, but also I think because everybody knows that this team needs to figure it out, obviously, and Gio was not part of the piece that needed to figure it out on this team, but I think that that the fans were very willing to like let them figure it out at whatever kind of cost that took, as long as it wasn't Jared McCann. Nobody wanted to see Jared McCann go, and then they signed him to an extension, which was good. And one thing too that I think softens the blow of it in terms of Gio going to Toronto is that Gio wanted to go to Toronto. He's from Toronto. His entire family lives there. His parents are there, and he just had his like 1,000th game. It was on the road, but we did a big ceremony for him in Seattle, and his dad like narrated the whole thing, and it was a big show. It was really cool. So, and Gio told Francis, like, you can trade me anywhere, but Francis was like, is Toronto okay? And Gio was like, please, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where he wanted to go. So that makes it better. It's not like they're like, what the hell? I gotta go there,
Yeah.
Well,
And Jared McCann, that's the guy you stole from us too. I wish he was still a Leaf. He never actually played a game, but
they didn't even play a game.
no, but
Well,
would have been nice. Would have been nice to see him in a Leaf uniform, I think.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's really nice too.
Yeah.
well,
I think he's finally getting like a shot too. He's one of those guys. He's 25. I think this is his sixth NHL team, fifth or sixth team that he's played for. He's just been traded around this league because he's always good enough to be like have some value as an asset, but never enough necessarily to have been a franchise player anywhere. So it sounds like Seattle's like, Jared, you're gonna be with us for a while, and Jared's like, please, thank you.
Nice.
Anyway, just kidding.
well, hopefully Gio can at least help get the Leafs past the first round this year. But if you had to choose a team from the East and a team from the West to make to the Stanley Cup Finals right now, who are your two teams?
Ooh, on the spot.
Who do I think will, or who do I want?
Both.
Who do you think? Yeah, both. We can go both. Yeah.
I just think that the Hurricanes, I think they got it. Like, I just think that
they're looking good this year.
I think they got it. And then I also would say that I just think that the Avs got it too.
Yeah. Minnesota's scary now too.
But Minnesota, like, that's who I want.
Yeah.
That's who I want. And they did just beat the Avs last night in overtime. But also they've won their last 3 games in a row in overtime. So then it's like, why are all of your games going to overtime? At least you're clutching them, I guess. And then they make this big trade for Fleury.
Yeah.
Cam Talbot has won he's only lost 3 games at home all year, and he's won his last 8 starts.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe they were just like doubling down on like, we will not allow goaltending to be the reason that
which is a bit of a sore topic for us in Toronto, because a lot of Leaf fans wanted Fleury. I was going to ask too, though, is Minnesota obviously your childhood team that you cheered for growing up, so you still keep tabs on them pretty well?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, my friend who's been like, she was born and raised, she's much younger than me, but she was born in 2001 in Detroit. Okay. She was raised in Ann Arbor. So she's like, Minnesota's the most irrelevant franchise that's ever existed. Nobody cares about Minnesota. Because she was like a Red Wings fan from like the golden, and I was just like, so I would love to see them really make a run this year. I think it would be great. And I also think that for years, even though I, grew up in the era of the Zach Parise and Suter show, I think that those big changes that they made, they used to just turn over GM after GM and head coach after head coach just to keep those two basically like in charge and in power. And I think it's interesting that they kind of gave them the boot, and the team seems to be a completely different team since then.
Yeah. So, I think we'll kind of end on this. Matt and I have a friend that moved here and she married one of our friends. She's from Seattle though. So she's explained it to us a little bit, kind of how it's like. But in your opinion, if we were to travel down to Seattle and we wanted to make a day of it, is there like bars to go to before? What's the downtown like? Is it just if we're going to Seattle, what are 2 things we maybe need to do other than see the Kraken?
Oh my gosh, it depends what you like. Do you like nature-y stuff or do you like more like touristy stuff?
Oh, Matt's a big nature
Yeah,
guy.
big nature guy.
Then I would definitely go for some hikes because Seattle is literally on. If it's a clear day, there are volcanoes, 3 of them on each side.
Oh,
Like,
Okay.
wow.
and so you can be in the middle of the water and there's just literally like mountains everywhere, and then there's also the ocean there. So it's just like really cool. And hiking is huge here. It's like a super outdoorsy thing. So, um, I haven't been on like a ton of hikes, and it also depends how aggressive you are about hiking. But I would say if you like hiking, this is like find a good hike would be one of them.
Yeah.
Something I randomly did with my friend who lives in Florida last week is they have like hot tub boats where you can literally take them out on the water
Ooh, that sounds
downtown.
fun.
You see the Space Needle, the mountains, and you're like in a hot tub boat in the middle of the city. That was fun.
That's all right.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of cool bars and stuff too. Obviously, go see the Space Needle, do the
Yeah.
Place Market. If you like music, we have this really sick museum called Mopop, which is the Museum of Pop Culture, which was founded by like the co-founder of Microsoft. I forget his name.
Ooh.
People who are smart
Interesting.
would be
Yeah.
like
We might have some smart people listening. We're not them, but
people around here, like they know all the tech people, you know, 'cause
yeah.
it's a tech city. But they
Yeah.
have got a whole Nirvana exhibit, a whole Jimi Hendrix exhibit, a Pearl Jam exhibit. They have like a whole horror movie exhibit and a
Oh,
sci-fi
wow.
exhibit with like all the OG Star Wars props, like the model size Tatooine, because that's like how they shot it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if you guys like Star Wars, but
Not a big Star Wars guy, but there
well,
are
I
people
thought it
that
was super cool. They got like, all the lightsabers. They got like Freddy Krueger's costume in there. So if you
Yeah.
like sci-fi stuff, they got Dumbledore's robes, a bunch of Game of Thrones stuff. So
That's cool.
that's a really cool museum. So I would go see that.
That is really cool. And just one more for you here before we end off. Since you've started your career in Seattle, what's been your favorite moment?
Oh my goodness,
I know there's probably a lot, but if there's one that sticks out, or just even a memory or a story so far.
probably one of my favorite moments would be one of the earliest moments that I had here, which was when I was hosting the expansion draft, because I kind of just got thrown into the middle of this organization that was just throwing everything together. And I was like hosting this event with all these Seattle legends. Like I got to meet like Lenny Wilkins, and Bobby Wagner was like hosting a thing with me. And I was
Wow.
just hanging out with Bobby Wagner all day. And I was like, all right, let's
That's
go.
cool.
And I got to interview Jerry Bruckheimer, who's one of the owners of the Kraken, but he's also like a huge movie producer and director. Like the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise is his franchise. Top Gun is his franchise.
Wow.
Like, so he's like one of like the most, which is also I think probably why we are Kraken and like pirate themed, because obviously Pirates of the Caribbean and the Kraken. But I
Yeah.
got to interview him, and then he came up to me later and he just said that he's a very soft spoken man. He's told me that he thought I had a bright career ahead of
Wow.
me.
That's awesome.
That is a feather in my cap. So
Yeah,
that was
that's
very
awesome.
cool to me.
That is cool. And then just as far as doing what you're doing now, you can see yourself doing it for the next few years. You have different goals and things you want to achieve.
I don't know. I get asked that question a lot. And like sometimes I just try to take inventory on the fact that even when I was covering college hockey, which I loved and I still love, I'm tracking, you know, the Frozen Four like no other. But that even that kind of an opportunity is something that people work for 15 years or 20 years to get to in their career. So I try to just be grateful and like work hard with what I have right now. I don't I mean, like maybe it would be cool someday to like do NHL network or whatever, but I don't really want to move to like New York City. Like, I don't know. So I'm just kind of enjoying where I'm at. And for the last 4 years, this is the only place I wanted to be. So now I'm kind of,
Yeah.
I'm a very like ambitious person. So it's hard for me not to like want to do more. But then at the same time, I'm like, it's okay to just, you don't have to hustle your entire life away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
true.
awesome. Well, Piper, thank you so much for doing this. We're excited to watch the Kraken get a little better in the next few years, and you never know, this kid Shane Wright, if the Kraken lose maybe a few more games than Montreal, then Shane Wright could be a Kraken. So we're excited for that possibility, and thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you guys for having me. It was fun.
Thank you.
See you later.